A huge part of Payday 2 is its skill tree system, a way of specialising your character to fit certain roles. The skill tree system is a big part of what keeps Payday 2 fresh, being able to play heists over and over again, but in different ways, such as being more run and gun, slow and tanky, or even focusing on buffing and helping your team. However, within these massive skills and abilities, paired with the fact that you only have 120 points to spend, means you have to be very careful when deciding which area to specialise in. Here there are some skills that should always be a part of your build no matter what. But then there are the ones that you should never touch. This is the list of my top 5 worst skills. Also, I did say my list, so you're allowed to have your own opinion, I'm just giving mine. At number 5 we're starting off with Fire Trap. This is the 4th tier skill in the Breacher subtree, it costs 12 points to get. This is the final upgrade for trip mines, making them cause a fire in a 6 meter radius for 20 seconds upon detonation. Now this skill isn't all bad, it makes a deployable made for entry denial better at its job, blocking off an area for 20 seconds after detonation. Plus you get 14 of them with the Ace Dwarf Firepower skill, meaning you have plenty of them. But you are missing out on something a lot more valuable, such as a Doctor Bag, and sentry guns are a lot better at entry denial and they can be redeployed unless they are destroyed, unlike trip mines which are one-time use. First of all, who uses trip mines? The only time I use trip mines is for the shaped charges they come with. Overall, trip mines just aren't really that good and are very rarely used when compared to better deployables like the Doctor Bag or Ammo Bag. Secondly, you can do the same job with a Molotov. Molotovs have an area of 4 meters and burn for about 16 seconds, so already it's almost on par with the fire created by the trip mines. Also, deployables are a lot more valuable than a throwable, so it's much better to take a Molotov with the Doctor Bag instead of fire trip mines. Finally, it costs 12 points and all the extra points to get up to it. This skill would only really be useful with more firepower, which gives you more trip mines, and Jack of all trades, which lets you deploy trip mines twice as fast, so you can quickly stop a horde of enemies entering a room. One more thing to note is that while placing trip mines on the floor and ceiling sets the area directly below it on fire, placing it on a wall tends to set the wall on fire, and not the floor. So unless the enemies are walking on the wall, placing trip mines on the edges of doorways isn't really going to be that helpful. For number 4 I have put Body Expertise, the 4th tier skill in the Oppressor tree. Out of all the skills in Payday 2, this is the main one I would think of if someone mentioned a crotch perk. What this skill does is, when basic, deals 60% of the damage you would do if you hit a headshot when hitting a body shot. The aced version ups this to 90. So this skill has gone through some changes over the updates, but still remains pretty useless in my opinion. Essentially, this skill is just to compensate for a lack of damage output if you can't consistently hit headshots, by giving you headshot damage on a body shot. This is the reason I call it a crotch perk, because this skill helps you if you can't aim well. Of course, if you can't aim at all and can't even hit an enemy, it won't help you at all. Now, I would say this skill is useless because it is, in a nutshell, spending 12 valuable skill points to do something that you can already do better with a bit of aim practice. You can use 12 points on so much more, and you can do more damage without even having the skill, just by hitting headshots, which is of course difficult if you're new to the game. I'm not having a go at you if you use this skill or if you're not very good at hitting headshots. Everyone gets better with practice, and soon enough you'll be popping helmets all game. But this skill for everyone else? Almost completely pointless. But only almost. We are only at spot number 4 after all. In the 3rd spot we have the good old Saw Massacre, a 3rd tier perk in the ammo skills tree. What a creative name for a subtree. You see the problem with this perk? I'll give you a clue here. It's in the name. That's right. The saw is a tool, and the perk is called Saw Massacre. Still don't get it? Well, the saw is a tool for cutting open doors, deposit boxes, and whatever you want really. What it is not meant to be, however, is a weapon. Of course it can be used as a weapon, but it's not the designated use for it, and so is not very good at it. This skill attempts to improve that by reducing the ammo consumption when attacking enemies with it by 50%, as well as being able to saw through shields and having a chance at spreading panic among enemies. So the real problem with this, as I've already covered, is that the saw was not created in mind for killing enemies. The skill tries to improve it, and I guess it's okay if you think trading out a weapon for a tool is bad and you want the tool to also be a weapon, but it costs 9 points altogether. This is a massive waste, especially when you can just take a primary with the basic portable saw skill for 2 points. You have teammates, and unless you're a lonely prick like me who likes playing with bots, they can help you deal with enemies that your primary can't take on, like shields and possibly snipers. You are the team player, you're bringing the utility, and your teammates should respect you for that and try and help you out because you're down a weapon. You should feel good about being a good teammate when using a saw. Apart from if you're using Saw Massacre, then you should just rethink your whole life. Coming in at number 2 is Heavy Impact, one of the second tier perks in the Oppressor tree. Of course this only costs 4 points, so isn't too much of a dent in your spending points, but that doesn't stop it from being bad. At the basic level, it almost never comes into play with a pathetic 5% chance to stagger enemies when shooting them. Ace ups the stagger chance to 20%, but how useful even is stagger? It stops the one enemy you got that 1 in 5 chance on for a few seconds, but all the other enemies are still shooting at you. How does this help? Well, it doesn't really. The stagger chance is way too low for it to really affect the enemies at all, and even with an automatic large magazine weapon it still doesn't do much. It doesn't even affect shields either. Staggering also makes it harder to hit headshots on enemies, and if you're so desperate to stun enemies, use an electric melee weapon or poison bolts on the crossbow. It works much more frequently and much more effectively. It also costs no skill points, leaving you with an extra 4 points to spend on something much more worth your time. And the grand prize for being the worst skill in existence goes to Counter-Strike. No, not the game, that's actually alright. Counter-Strike is a 3rd tier perk in the Brawler skill tree. The Brawler skill tree itself is mainly focused around melee and high damage for low health. Counter-Strike, however, has little to no use for a complete waste of 9 skill points. What this skill does is, while charging your melee weapon, which I will remind you is absolutely terrible due to the state of melee at the moment, you can knock down enemies that try to melee you. This also works on cloakers. Both of these can also be achieved with the buzzer or electric brass knuckles. So what is the point of this skill if you can do exactly the same thing with electric melee weapons? Well, nothing really, unless you're determined to find a way to stun bulldozers. And if you can hear a cloaker nearby, you should probably find it and kill it. If it charges at you, it's probably too late anyway to charge your melee weapon. It's a lose-lose situation most of the time, and on regular cops who almost never prioritise melee attacks, why bother? You can't walk through a group of cops charging your melee weapon because they'll hardly ever melee you. They'll just shoot you and you'll die because you can't shoot back. Because you brought a knife to a gunfight. And lost 9 skill points along the way. This skill is completely outclassed by a melee weapon, which I never thought I'd say with the way melee is at the moment. You can walk around with a charged melee weapon, being unable to shoot because you can see a cloaker nearby, or you can use a regular attack with the electric melee weapons, which will stun lock all enemies except the bulldozer, and you'll be able to shoot before you melee. You have a gun for a reason, you shouldn't be choosing to hit cops with a fidget spinner over shooting them with a goddamn gun. So that was my list of the 5 worst skills in Payday 2. Do you agree or do you disagree? What else do you think should have made the list? Just to clarify, there are definitely more than 5 bad perks, but these were the worst in my opinion. Thanks for watching and have a good day.